A very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to today's webinar on Destination Canada titled Heritage and Culture of Canada, broadcasted by Travel Trends Today. I, Akshay Kumar, Senior Correspondent, Travel Trends Today, will be your host. Canada, with its diverse culture, is sometimes called as a nation of nations. Indeed, a beautiful destination that can be visited year-round and is well known for its heritage, scenic beauty, people, and their culture. Canada is vast and cannot be completed in a single trip. We have designed a series of webinars to provide a unique platform for tour operators to create a multitude of itineraries for longer duration, multiple journeys, and thus increased income opportunities. During 2020, we will conduct a series of webinars highlighting several themes of Canada. Today, let's explore the heritage and culture aspect of this magical destination called Canada. Before proceeding with our webinar, I would like to highlight a few important instructions in brief. Audience can feel free to click any of the widgets available at the bottom of their screen to know the corresponding information that particular widget is carrying. You can click on the Bio tab to learn more about our speakers. You can also click on the Abstract tab to know about our today's webinar presentation in brief. Please feel free to ask any question during the course of the webinar pertaining to the topic by clicking on the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. If you still have any questions regarding anything related to this program, please feel free to ask a question by clicking on the Q&A tab, and our technical assistant would surely help you. Before we start with the proceedings, can we have a short visual on what the destination has to offer for us?
Somewhere outside of your ordinary, with people you've just met, in a place you thought you knew, it becomes more than you ever expected. You can just be you, and that's all you need to be. And no matter what, you always fit in, where the sights are as beautiful as the people, where the wildlife can get pretty wild. And even though you're not from around here, when you say goodbye, it's like saying bye to family. That's when you know it's more than traveling, more than a vacation. It's a journey, and it's just beginning, and it will continue long after you've returned home.
Thank you so much. We have amongst us Mr. Carl Vaz, Managing Director, Destination Canada, India GSA, to educate us about the destination. Mr. Vaz has undertaken various marketing communications, international trade, and finance workshops and programs during the last 28 years through various global and Indian educational institutions. He is also actively involved as a guest lecturer on travel and tourism at various educational institutions in his home city, Mumbai. May I please welcome Mr. Vaz.
Thank you, Akshay, and a very good evening to all our trade partners across India. It's a pleasure to once again be on this platform to speak about the next educational episode in our series. This one being titled Heritage and Culture of Canada. Before I begin, I just want to take the opportunity to thank Ms. Jackie McLean from the Immigration, Refugee, Citizenship of Canada IRCC team based out of the Canadian High Commission in New Delhi. Jackie is coming to us live from Canada, where she's currently based in, and it's way in the middle of the night. So thank you to Jackie for being online with us. I would also like to thank Mr. Prasad from DMCI, who will be joining us for the first time on these series of webinars. Prasad will be talking about his company and the particular itineraries that he has, which would sync in line with the theme that we have this afternoon. It's also early morning for Prasad in Toronto, and I just want to thank him also for coming live and online. And of course, this entire series of webinars would not be complete without the gracious support and courage that Mr. Arun Pandya gives us all as the country head for Air Canada in India. So thank you, Mr. Arun Pandya, who's coming to us live from New Delhi. My dear friends, for some time now, we've been concentrating on talking about Canada as in terms of a generic approach towards marketing travel itineraries. Itineraries that span the East Coast, coming towards central Canada and onto the West Coast. We've also spoken in the previous webinar about the low-hanging fruits that one can tap into in terms of existing itineraries being refreshed. This was the concept of My Classic Canada webinar that we had just a couple of weeks ago. Now, what we'd like to do this afternoon is to take you slowly to the next step. And the next step is, how do you enrich those itineraries that we spoke about in our previous webinar? So beginning this month, we will talk about several aspects of Canada. This afternoon's webinar focuses exclusively on the heritage and cultural aspect. And as we go on through the rest of the series of webinars, we will touch upon adventure, we'll touch upon road trips, we will touch upon the significance of Atlantic and the East Coast, itineraries that can be populated for the West Coast of Canada, all as we go along in these series, so that you are prepped up to sell Canada more aggressively for the summer 2021 season. I would just like to take this opportunity to also thank Informa Markets for the support and boosting this series across the travel industry, and for always being there to support us. Before I hand over the platform to the next speaker, which is Jackie McLean, I'd just like to advise you that should you want any of the material that is presented today, it will still be available live on the platform. So you can still, you'll still have the opportunity to download some of that information or take notes. Because this was one of the feedbacks that I got last time, is how do I get access to some of the material that is presented? And so Informa does have this material that is kept online, and maybe Akshay can touch upon it at a later stage. Having said that, I just want to thank all of you once again for being here this afternoon and for supporting Destination Canada and its stakeholders. And I would now like to take the opportunity to invite Ms. Jackie McLean from IRCC, who's coming to us from Central Canada. Jackie, over to you, please.
Thank you very much, Carl, and thanks to Destination Canada for inviting us. We have an excellent partnership, and as things are changing rapidly in the world of immigration and the travel restrictions, I feel it's very important that we continue to make these have these webinars so that travel agents are well aware of the restrictions. So I'm just going to start the presentation here to go through what some of the exemptions that we're going to go through. So the first one is overall general restrictions to Canada. Exemptions to the travel restrictions for workers, students, permanent resident holders, and also processing changes that are taking place at the mission, and conditions when boarding and mandatory quarantine. We'll have some time for questions and answers. So as I understand, you can put in your questions in either the Q&A or the chat, and I'll try to answer your burning questions after this short presentation. So the first one is, in order to protect the health and safety of Canadians, there was travel restrictions that were put in place as of March 18th. And until further note, until actually the 31st of August, those travel restrictions will be in place. So I want to emphasize that the material that I'm providing today is current as of today, but that there could be changes in the future. So until further notice, most people cannot travel to Canada, even if they have a valid visa or an ETA. So the only travel that is being accepted are from people that are considered to be essential travelers. And we'll go through what an essential travel is. So currently, people that have the right to enter Canada are, of course, Canadian citizens or permanent residents that have a valid permanent resident card, a person registered under the Indian Act, a protected person, a refugee, a foreign national coming for an essential, non-discretionary purpose. And that's probably the one that you're most interested in, is who are the folks that meet that criteria. So some temporary foreign workers, some international students, and there are also approved confirmation of permanent resident holders, as well as some visitors who are visiting immediate family in Canada. So what is non-optional or non-discretionary for a temporary foreign worker? That means somebody that has normally resided in Canada. So someone that was in Canada and then had to leave because they had, work or business to do or visiting family. Anyway, they were previously in Canada and now need to return and were not able to do so because of the travel restrictions. The other situation is a foreign national that has a letter of introductory and is able to engage in employment after their quarantine period. So what is optional or discretionary would be foreign nationals that currently don't have employment in Canada or are not returning to Canada where they had employment. So exemptions to the travel restrictions for international students. And this is a really important date. So the date of March 18th, 2020. So anyone that was issued a student permit on or before that date is authorized to enter Canada, provided that they have an essential reason for being in Canada. And what does that mean for students as an essential reason? That means that they're required to attend their classes in person. So if their classes are online, regardless if the visa was issued on or before March 18th, 2020, they will not be allowed to enter Canada at this time. We are strongly suggesting that students that have been issued the visa on or before March 18th and are traveling because their studies do require them to be present in Canada only do so 3 weeks prior to their studies starting. Anything prior to that might not be considered as essential non-discretionary travel. What they should have with them is a valid study permit or a port of entry letter of introduction. But what's most important is that they have the S, which is usually coded S1 visa in their passport. So permanent resident card holders and confirmation of permanent resident card confirmation of permanent resident holders. So if you have a permanent resident card, then you can travel to Canada. There might be situations where somebody has lost their permanent resident card, in which case they should apply for what's called a permanent resident travel document. With a permanent resident travel document, because the mission is working with reduced staff and currently our visa application centers are not open, we are making exceptions for these folks to travel on what we're calling a foil-less visa. So you may see in some instances where somebody has an authorization letter allowing them to enter Canada, and that their visa has actually been issued in our system, but they won't have a copy of it in their passport. So this is something that we introduced in order to get permanent residents who are normally live in Canada and have been separated from their family, not able to return to their work because they didn't have their permanent resident card, how they are able to enter Canada on a permanent resident travel document, even if it's not in their passport. So for confirmation of permanent resident holders, those that were issued again before March 18th, on or before March 18th, approved an application, they can travel to Canada. Now, a lot of the folks that were issued these confirmation of permanent residence, they're now expired. And so what the government is trying to do, or IRCC is trying to do with expired confirmation of permanent resident holders, is to have them board the plane on their current document, even if it was expired. However, they will require an authorization letter. So I know there's a number of people that are trying to obtain that letter so that they can travel on their expired confirmation of permanent resident document. So visitors, there's divided into two categories of visitors. Those that are staying for over 15 days and those that may not be able to stay for 15 days or longer. So if they are staying for longer than 15 days and are visiting a permanent, an immediate family member, so a spouse, a parent who is a Canadian citizen or permanent resident, they may enter Canada. They do not require an authorization letter, provided that they are going for 15 days or longer. There might be a situation where they cannot stay for those 15 days, and in which case they have to, most of the time it's for folks that are entering from the United States, and they might just need to see a doctor, something like that, you know, from close to the port of entry. A lot of those people that have a shared border with the United States. So the majority of people are expected to stay with their immediate family member for 15 days or longer. The other exception, actually, we'll just go to the new slide. So what is an immediate family member? I mentioned that it's a spouse or common law partner. A child can go visit their parents provided they are under the age of 22. A parent or a step-parent, guardian or tutor. Some people who have had their children living with their parents in India, or sorry, not their parents. Their parents can come. Obviously, they would meet the requirements. But if they're staying with an aunt or uncle, unless it is a legal guardian, that would not meet the requirements. So merely because they're staying with their aunt and uncle, that aunt or uncle could not travel to Canada under that guardian or tutor. Your spouse or dependent child and your spouse's parent or step-parent. A dependent child of a dependent child. So then we're going to explain which is really key, is if it is a temporary residence, so someone that is a work permit holder or a study permit holder, and they have an immediate family member who is in Canada, who is also a work permit holder, a study permit holder, those are the folks that require an authorization letter. So a lot of confusion around that regarding who requires an authorization letter. And so I just want to be perfectly clear, the two kind of categories that require an authorization letter. It's temporary residents going to visit a temporary resident that is an immediate family member, or somebody that is authorized to travel and requires and is on a FOIL-less visa. So those are the only two situations. I know sometimes the airlines have been telling folks that they require an authorization letter, and it's impossible for clients to obtain that unless they're under either of those categories. So I just wanted to go through some of our processing changes. So currently all applications that are being submitted have to be submitted online. The visa application centers are closed and we're not accepting paper applications. Currently, our published processing times are not accurate because we are prioritizing applications of people that meet the travel restrictions. So if you were going for tourism, your application, even though you submitted it prior to somebody that is going to visit an immediate family member, will not be processed as quickly. We are working with reduced staff at the mission at this time, as many have been evacuated back to Canada. That means that only essential services are being conducted right now at the mission. We're getting a lot of questions regarding when will the visa application centers reopen, and we're looking to Ottawa to provide us with that information as they work with the VAC unit to see when it is safe and what type of essential services they can provide. Conditions before air travel. So if everyone has to undergo a health check to make sure that they are do not exhibit signs of COVID prior to traveling. That will also be examined at the port of entry, where many countries will do temperature checks and go through a certain survey to make sure that you're not exhibiting symptoms of COVID. And then there's the mandatory quarantine period where you have to quarantine for 14 days. And before you're allowed entry, and often even before you're allowed to board a flight, they will make sure that you have a quarantine plan. So if you don't have a quarantine plan, do not expect to be able to travel or enter Canada. It can't be, well, I'm going to catch a cab and go and tour around Toronto. You have to have a solid quarantine plan for 14 days. If you are found not to have quarantined, it is up to a $750,000 fine or 6 months in prison. So with that, I will take some of the questions that you might have regarding the travel restrictions.
Thank you so much, Jackie. Indeed, a very informative presentation as usual. So we have a few questions for you. So let's straight away start the questions. These are very specific questions directed to you. One is, if a client has a business in Canada, then in this current situation, should he travel to Canada on a visitor visa or a business visa?
So there's no difference between a business visa and a visitor visa. They're both temporary resident visas. It's just the coding is either B1 or V1, but that's only for statistical purposes. And currently, the holders of temporary resident visas are not authorized to enter Canada unless they meet the exemptions, which we went through. So basically, an immediate family member in Canada. There is very, very rare exceptions where a person would be allowed to enter in order to conduct business.
Thank you. Next, we have a question. How much delay is currently expected in
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? Oh, sorry. I'm not able to hear the question.
Sorry, I think there was some network issue. So yeah, in the current scenario, how much delay is expected for a work visa?
How much delay, I think you said, how much delay is there for a work permit holder?
Work permit visa.
Oh, okay. So it depends on the situation. You can go to our website and look to see what are essential services that are being required in Canada. So there's a list of exemptions to work visas, and those ones we are prioritizing. So say, for example, people that are hauling goods, essential goods across the border, healthcare workers, those are the work permit visas that we are prioritizing, are the ones that are in those categories. So the processing time in those categories is substantially less. Currently, we're not processing a lot of work permit applications for ones that are not in essential services.
Okay, and we have a very interesting question. What happens to those visas which are valid now, but most likely will expire before travel restrictions are lifted?
So you will have to apply for a new temporary resident visa. The good thing about that is if you were previously issued a visa, it was likely to the duration of your passport. So you were probably requiring a new passport. You can then apply with your new passport, and your visa will most likely, because it's the standard now to issue 10-year multiple entry visas or to the duration of your passport.
And one final question we have, even if we apply the visa online, how will the biometric be collected, as most of the visa application centers are closed?
So currently, what they're looking at for students in particular is that we will approve in principle your application without you completing your biometrics or submitting your medical, provided you have the rest of the, you meet all the rest of the requirements. But that is only for students. For visitors and workers, you will be required to complete your biometrics, and that you'll have to wait for the visa application centers to reopen. To be clear, for students, it's so that they can study online. So they would receive approval in principle, and then once they can complete their biometrics, when the visa application centers are open, that's when they would obtain their visa and be able to travel to Canada, provided the travel exemptions allow them to.
Thank you so much, Jackie, for taking out time and interacting with our audience. The presentation was indeed very informative, and you have answered most of the questions. If we have any more, we'll just mail it to you post the session.
Absolutely.
We are all now. Yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to say that you're welcome to email us at Delhi Immigration or follow us on Facebook or Twitter.
Thank you so much, Jackie.
Thank you.
Thank you for. We are all well versed with the visa front now. Up next, we have Mr. Arun Pandya, General Manager, India, Air Canada, who is responsible for transporting us all the way to Canada seamlessly. A very diverse experience of 30 years in service sector, international markets, Indian market, and startups with lead MNCs in senior position. Key areas of experience have been in sales and marketing, financial and project planning, distribution, brand management, government relations, and innovations. May I please welcome Mr. Pandya.
Thank you. At the outset, I'd like to say that Air Canada has a very, very strong partnership with Destination Canada. Carl has done a wonderful amount of work in synergizing and bringing Air Canada and Destination Canada very, very close to each other, with so many activities that we have done together in the last few years. If we look at the figures of people traveling to Canada in the last few years, it has been extremely good. And the best part is that there are certain segments of the market that have started moving to Canada, for example, for incentives. So MICE has become a very big area of focus for us. Even leisure, the kind of investment Destination Canada has done, the cruise business, it's all very, very positive. We are hoping that whatever is happening today in terms of COVID, we are going to overcome, and we will see traction back on leisure at least next year. And the foundation is being laid now by Destination Canada. And I'd like to use this opportunity in reinforcing to Carl, to Destination Canada, to all our agent partners, that Air Canada will come forward in partnering with Destination Canada on all the leisure packages that they are planning to promote next year. So that's a key area of focus for us too. So I'm going to start with the film that is talking about coming back to Canada. So we are ready to take off, and we are ready to welcome you back in Canada. I'd like to share with all of you that Air Canada will be starting its flights thrice a week from Toronto to Delhi, starting 15th from Toronto and starting 18th ex Delhi. These flights will also continue in September, subject to DGCA approval. We have an agreement with the DGCA and the Government of India, so we look forward to their approval for the September flights. We will also start the Vancouver-Delhi flight in September. We will communicate to all of you about these flights and the schedule, which of course will be available on the GDS and will be and you will be able to sell on the GDS for these flights. I'd also like to mention that our lounges have opened. So the good thing is that we have redone our lounges, keeping in perspective the COVID-19 requirement, the various remodeling that has been done in the lounges is a fact that you will see in the next film. I wanted to also share the fact that Air Canada is extremely sensitive about your safety and well-being. It's because of that the Clean Care Plus is a protocol that Air Canada has launched, which you will see throughout the airports we are servicing, as well as in the in-flight services. You will also be very, very happy to know that Air Canada has flown in special equipment, for example, to Delhi, because we're going to start flights from Delhi also, which is going to be used for sanitizing the whole aircraft. So before you even board the aircraft, there is a special safety protocol that is going to be followed in sanitizing every nook and corner of the aircraft so that all of you are safe. Whoever is traveling, your passengers, your clients, that they are all very safe. I also want to mention that these aircrafts, which are the 787-900 Dreamliners, they are fitted with HEPA filters. Now, these HEPA filters are, firstly, the clean air circulation in these cabins is one of the best in the world on the 787 Boeing 900 aircrafts. The second factor is that HEPA filters are supposed to clean 99.99% of the air and the particles in the cabin. And the air circulation is very, very frequent. So it's absolutely safe to travel by air. And this you will see now in the next film. So this is what we are doing. This is how we are trying to be safe. This is how we are trying to keep all your clients safe. We look forward to welcoming your passengers, your clients. And if there are any questions at the end of all the presentations, I'm here to respond to any questions. The most important factor that Jackie mentioned is that in spite of all the agreements that are there between countries, like the air bubble agreement of the government of India, what is most important is to respect and to be aware of the entry restrictions that each country has, including Canada. It is very, very important that there is a full amount of compliance on all these restrictions that may be there, both on the Indian side as well as on the Canadian side, so that none of your passengers have any problems when they land in Canada. So with that, I'd like to hand over to Carl and look forward to interacting with you at the end of the session, so that if there are any questions, we'll be happy to respond. Thank you.
Brilliant presentation, Mr. Pandya, and I must say, excellent videos. The new safety features will surely help in instilling confidence amongst the travelers. I'm sure each one of us are already excited to travel to Canada on the luxurious Air Canada very soon. Further, to check out what unique products Canada has in store, may I please welcome Mr. Vaz to further explain about the exclusive offerings. Over to you, Mr. Vaz.
Thank you, Akshay, and thank you, Mr. Arun Pandya, for your continued support and encouragement. This would not be possible without the support of all your offices and team members. My friends, we come to that part of the afternoon when we are going to now do a deep dive into how you can further build heritage and cultural packages for summer 2021. For some of you who have just logged in or may have perhaps logged in a bit earlier, but not heard the entire proceedings from the beginning, we had in the last webinar spoken about the summer classics for summer 2021. And those summer classic itineraries focused on the east coast of Canada, as well as you had central Canada, or should I say the prairie province of Alberta, along with the Rockies. And then we went onwards to the west coast. This afternoon, what we're going to do is we're going to do a deep dive pan-Canada. We're going to talk to you about the heritage and culture aspects of Canada across the length and breadth of this wonderful nation. But more importantly, we are going to give you ideas to create specific itineraries. Now, these itineraries have been designed by the team at my office. I'd like to thank Carol Paul, who will be taking you also through the presentation, Vishaka, Manisha, and Conrad, all my team members who are currently here online as well, for the wonderful research work that they have done in bringing this presentation together, especially handcrafting itineraries that Carol will touch upon in due course. Do bear in mind that these itineraries, we are not able to cost them. So we're not able to put a figure that would be available on a B2B level, which is why I'm happy to inform you that we have Mr. Prasad Gopinath, President of DMCI, present with us this afternoon. He's going to talk about his company. He's going to talk about some of the itineraries that he has. And I'm sure if there's anything that you like in our presentation, I'm sure Prasad and his team will be able to get you a reasonable quotation, right? So thank you so much, everyone, for being here. And I'm going to come back in a short bit. But for now, I would like to hand over the platform to Carol Paul, who's a manager for leisure at Destination Canada India GSA. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, and a very warm welcome to each one of you once again to explore the heritage and culture of Canada. Now, before we touch each provinces, let us understand the geography of Canada. Canada is the second largest country on Earth after Russia, and it is surrounded by three oceans, the Pacific being to the west, the Atlantic to the east, and the Arctic Ocean to the north. Canada is being divided into 5 distinct regions. So here is the map of Canada. We have Atlantic Canada, which is towards the east here. We have Ontario and Quebec province, which is a part of central Canada. We have prairie provinces, and we would be going through in details with these provinces as well, which is Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta. Towards the west, we have British Columbia, and there are 3 territories towards the north, which is Yukon, Northwest Territories, and the Nunavut Territory. And we would be deep diving into the Northwest Territories and Yukon Territory. So let us begin with Atlantic Canada, wherein we would begin with Newfoundland and Labrador. Now, Newfoundland and Labrador is the most easterly province in Canada, and Cape Spear Lighthouse is the most easterly point in Canada, as well as in Newfoundland and Labrador. So you must visit Newfoundland and Cape Spear when you visit Newfoundland and Labrador. The capital city of Newfoundland and Labrador is St. John, and we would be touching on what are the activities we can do in St. John. But before that, let me tell you that Twillingate, which is an approximate of 5 to 7 hours drive from St. John City, is a beautiful place where one can visit to see the icebergs of different shapes and sizes that float around at Twillingate. Further, we have Crossmore National Park, we have Arcs Provincial Park, Terra Nova National Park that you can drive within a range of 4 to 6 hours from St. John City. So the highlight of St. John City, like I said, St. John is the capital of Newfoundland and Labrador, and the highlight is Signal Hill. Why should we visit Signal Hill? That's because it is the first place wherein transatlantic signals were transmitted and exchanged between Europe and Canada. So this is the first time that the signals were transmitted and hence it is the National Historic Site that you must visit when you touch Newfoundland and Labrador. Further, you have Quidi Vidi Brewery. Now, the highlight of Quidi Vidi Brewery is that you get to experience, or you get to taste the beer, which is made of the real icebergs. So that is the highlight of Quidi Vidi Brewery, and along with that, you can also visit the Quidi Vidi Harbour, which gives you the old fishing port experience. Cape Spear, that I already mentioned, a National Historic Site, which is the easterly point in St. John's, and an easterly point in Newfoundland and Labrador. Now, we have mentioned here the flying hours. So from Halifax to St. John's, so it is a 1.5 hours flight. But if you want to directly fly from Toronto to St. John's, which is a 3.5 hours flight. So depending on the client's requirements, you can build in your itineraries accordingly. Next province we would explore is the Prince Edward Islands, and we would be going through the Charlottetown city, which is the capital city of Prince Edward Island province. So a must-see place when you visit Prince Edward Island is the Province House National Historic Site. But most of the time, the Province House is closed due to conservation. Hence, you must visit the Confederation Center of the Arts, wherein you have an option to offer guided city tour. You have an option to experience the history and the culture that Prince Edward Island has to offer. Along with that, you can club in with Charlottetown Farmers Market, St. Dunstan Basilica, as they are really close to each other. As we move ahead to our next province, which is Nova Scotia, so there are 3 places that you can cover in Nova Scotia. One is Halifax, and the Halifax Stanfield International Airport is the main airport that you can enter into Nova Scotia if you're planning to fly in. We would be covering Baddeck and a few highlights in Baddeck, as well as Lunenburg. Now, Nova Scotia is basically known for lighthouses. There are almost approximately 150 lighthouses, but Peggy's Cove is one of the highlight and the most photographed place when you visit Nova Scotia. Along with that, you can visit Maritime Museum of the Atlantic, Fisheries Museum, and various other places. When you visit Lunenburg, which is again in Nova Scotia, you must visit the Old Town and explore the town, the Lunenburg Town, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And the highlight of Baddeck is the Alexander Graham Bell Museum. Let us explore Nova Scotia through a short video. So that was beautiful Nova Scotia with various exciting activities and sightseeings. Now, further, while we move ahead to Halifax, which is the capital city of Nova Scotia. Now, Halifax waterfront, which is a boardwalk, is basically an highlight in Halifax. Along with that, the Halifax Citadel National Historic Site. The image of this particular place is on the right-hand side of your screen. It gives you an opportunity to touch the history of those soldiers that were present during the First World War. Addition to that, you have some famous festivals like the Atlantic Film Festivals that you can experience. You can also visit the Halifax pubs, live musics, and various other places at Halifax. Further, we move ahead to New Brunswick. Now, New Brunswick is majorly famous for the Hopewell Rocks. And here you can actually experience the tides getting converted from low tide to high tide within hours. It's a beautiful experience one can have at New Brunswick. Another major highlight is that 42% of the New Brunswickers are from the heritage of Celtic origins, which means they hail from the ancestors of Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and other British Isles. This is one of the itinerary wherein we would like to showcase it to you, wherein you arrive into Halifax, stay for 2 nights in Halifax with a day tour to Peggy's Cove and Lunenburg. You further proceed ahead for a day visit to New Brunswick and experience the Hopewell Rocks. Now here you can see the Confederation Bridge. Confederation Bridge basically connects the Prince Edward Island to New Brunswick. So if you're driving, you can drive through the Confederation Bridge and arrive at the Charlottetown in Prince Edward, then take a ferry to Bad Deck. Once you arrive in Bad Deck, you again explore the Cabot Trail in Bad Deck. This is the route of Cabot Trail, the most scenic, beautiful route one can experience, and experience the activities at Cape Breton Highlands National Park, and then further proceed again to Halifax for a 1-night stay. Again, this is the itineraries wherein we've clubbed in all of these activities that we just went through. Further from Halifax, you can move to Montreal. You have an option to opt for an ocean train, or you can fly to Montreal. Now, ocean train is an approximate of 21 hours. So depending on your client's requirements and the itinerary, you can either fly or opt for the train. And then you proceed onwards to Quebec City. So we would be going through the Montreal and Quebec City in the later slides. This is another itinerary wherein we will begin with 2 nights stay in Halifax, proceed to Bad Deck, again Cabot Trail, Cape Breton Island, then proceed to Charlottetown, which is in Prince Edward Island, do a day visit to Hopewell Rocks, which is again in New Brunswick, arrive at St. John, which is a part of Newfoundland and Labrador. You opt for a sail, a cruise from St. John, do a day visit to Digby, which is again one of the National Historic Site, and then proceed onwards to Lunenburg for a 2-night stay. So here, again, the itinerary has a combination of all the activities that we just spoke about. So when you travel from Bad Deck to Charlottetown, you need to take a ferry from Wood Islands. And there are various National Historic Sites that we just went through. Now we come to the Quebec province. Quebec province is one of the largest provinces out of the 10 provinces that we just saw in the map previously. And St. Lawrence River is the highlight of Quebec province. Addition to that, we have 2 major international airports, which gives you great connectivity of flight, which is the Pierre Elliott Trudeau International Airport and the John Lesage Airport in the Quebec City. As we move further ahead, we would be covering the Quebec City and Montreal in the Quebec province. When you visit Quebec City, you must opt for a walking tour or a guided tour at the old Quebec City, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And you must take a walking guided tour when you explore the old Quebec City, because it gives you an amazing historic view of the entire city. Citadel of Quebec is another great ceremony that takes place, and this ceremony takes place in the world only at specific places like London and Windsor, and in Canada it takes place in Ottawa and in Quebec City. As we move ahead, Quebec City has various sites, historic sites to offer, like your fortifications of the old Quebec City, which highlights your British heritage, the Cathedral of the Holy Trinity, again a British heritage. To experience a Irish heritage, you can opt for the Celtic Cross tour. Addition to that, like I said, the old Quebec, we have the Montmorency Falls, which is on the right-hand side, the image, which is on the right-hand side. And we have the Saint Anne de Beaupré, which is one of the top 5 religious sites in the world. It is basically a basilica and the most important religious site for Christians. Montreal is a place very famous for Notre Dame Basilica. So Notre Dame Basilica is mostly included in your city tours, but an evening view of Notre Dame Basilica is an amazing experience one can have. Addition to that, you must opt for a walking tour at the old Montreal, the old port of Montreal, which will give you an experience of the entire beautiful view of the city, as well as the St. Lawrence River. Now, when you drive from Montreal to Montreal International Airport to the downtown of Montreal, it's an approximate of 15 hours drive, whereas to Quebec City, it's a 3 hours drive. These are some of the places that we've highlighted in Montreal, which is your old Montreal port. And like I said, you can opt for a walking guided tour. Mount Royal Park, which is the image which is there on the right-hand side. The Saint Anne de Beaupré, which I already spoke to you. St. Joseph's Oratory, again, one of the highlight and the most beautiful place you can visit in Montreal, along with the Montreal Museum of Fine Art and the Montreal Tower, which gives you the top view of the entire city. As we move ahead to the next province, which is Ontario, now we all are aware that Toronto is the entrance to us when you want to visit the east coast of Canada. And hence, keeping that in mind, we've included Toronto and Niagara Falls, along with that Ottawa, which is the capital city of Canada, and the Thousand Islands. Now, there are 2 major international airports to arrive in Ontario. One is the Toronto Pearson International Airport and the Ottawa McDonald Cartier International Airport. Let us begin with the first city, which is the Niagara Falls. Now, along with the Hornblower Cruise, the journey behind the falls, and the various other helicopter ride and various other activities, you must also explore the historic side of Niagara Falls by visiting Niagara-on-the-Lake and also visiting the Fort George, which is close to Niagara-on-the-Lake. Now, Niagara-on-the-Lake is a beautiful experience of the winery regions and is very well known for wineries, as well as Fort George will give you it's basically an historic town, so it gives you more of a history of the Niagara Falls. In addition to that, you can also visit Fort Erie, but Fort Erie is open, I guess, post-October. So you need to check the exact date and the timings when Fort Erie is accessible. Now, to understand the distance from Niagara Falls, so when you travel from Toronto Pearson International Airport to Niagara Falls, it's approximately 1.5 hours drive. And if you want to drive from Niagara Falls directly to Kingston, it is a 4 hours drive. These are some of the highlights that touches the heritage site of Niagara Falls, which is your old Fort Erie, which I spoke to you about. We have Battle of Chippewa, again, one of the famous places you can visit, the Laura Secord Homestead, and various other places that you can see on the screen. Toronto, which is the capital city of Ontario, is very famous for CN Tower. But in addition to that, to experience the historic site, the heritage site, and the cultural site, you must visit Casa Loma and the Royal Ontario Museum. Along with that, St. Marie is an indigenous village wherein you can visit and explore and have an experience of the indigenous people. Now, from Toronto, if you drive to Kingston, it's an approximate of 266 kilometers, and further to Montreal, it's 545 kilometers. These are some of the highlights which are reflecting on your screen in Toronto that gives you an experience and a touch of heritage in Toronto, like the Distillery Historic District. That's what you can visit when you are in Toronto. St. Lawrence Market, the image you can see on the right-hand side, you can experience the local cuisine at St. Lawrence Market as well. Casa Loma, which I've already mentioned to you. Fort York, which is one of the National Historic Site. So these are some of the highlights in Toronto that you can experience to enhance the culture and the heritage site of this particular city. As we move to Ottawa, which is Canada's capital city, you must visit the Victoria Island, which is a part of the downtown of Ottawa, which gives you a beautiful opportunity to experience the native village, wherein you can also share songs and dance and experience the First Nations cuisine. Omega Park. Now, Omega Park is usually combined with Montreal, but you can also visit via Ottawa, which is an approximate of 45 to 50 minutes drive. Along with wildlife, you can also experience the fauna, history, heritage, and different cultures of First Nation at Omega Park. Like I said, Ottawa Macdonald-Cartier International Airport is the main entrance if you would directly want to arrive via flight to Ottawa, and it's a 20 minutes drive from the Ottawa to the Ottawa downtown area. Parliament Hill, the image that you can see on the right-hand side is a must visit when you visit Ottawa. That's because it has amazing events, cultural shows, and especially during the Canadian National Day, which is celebrated on the 1st of July, there are parade shows, cultural shows that take place at the Parliament Hill. Addition to that, you can sail at Rideau Canal or canoe at Rideau Canal, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, Canadian War Museum. Another thing I would like to highlight in Ottawa is that it has a lot of museums that you can explore. More than 6 to 7 museums, and few of them we have highlighted here is the National Cultural Museum, National Gallery of Canada, and the Canadian Museum of Nature. As we move ahead to Thousand Island, once you arrive, you can explore the beautiful island by opting the Rockport Cruise. And you can also stop by at Fort Henry, which gives you an amazing historic experience of the island. You have an option to enjoy the musical performances and the military demonstrations that take place at the Fort Henry in Thousand Islands. Additionally, you can also visit the Little Pump House. You can explore the top view of the entire island by opting for the helicopter ride. As we move further ahead, we will take you through an itinerary wherein we've covered Toronto, Niagara, Ottawa, Quebec, and Montreal, your east part of the country. Now, as soon as you arrive in Toronto, you proceed ahead to Niagara Falls for a 2-night stay, come back to Toronto for a 2-night stay again. Further, while you proceed to Ottawa, you can experience the Rockport Cruise, the Fort Henry in Thousand Islands, and then proceed ahead to Ottawa. Further, you move ahead for a 2-night stay in Quebec City and a 1-night stay in Montreal, and then proceed towards your onwards journey. So this is your itinerary. Once you arrive at Toronto, like I said, you can proceed to Niagara Falls, various activities, historic sites in Niagara Falls and in Toronto that you can visit. Legislature building is something that, again, I would like to highlight in Toronto that you must visit. Again, when you visit from Toronto to Ottawa, you can stop by at Thousand Islands and the various historic sites that you can visit in Quebec City as well as in Montreal. So this is a quick itinerary of 8 nights, 9 days, which focuses on the history of East Coast of Canada. The second itinerary we have is you arrive in Toronto for a 2-night stay. You do a day visit to Niagara Falls, proceed onwards for a 2-night stay to Ottawa. Again, After your stay in Ottawa, you can proceed to Quebec City and then stay one night in Montreal and exit from Montreal. I would just quickly brush through this itinerary because the sightseeings, the activities more or less remain the same. So on day 6, you visit the Quebec City, and on day 7, you exit from Montreal after you arrive in Montreal from Quebec City. Now, before I begin with the Prairie provinces, I would request Mr. Kalwas to come in and give us the overview of the entire province.
Thank you, Carol. Dear friends, when we look at the provinces of the central Canadian provinces of Manitoba and Saskatchewan, a few things that come to mind. Firstly, when we talk about summer 2021, I would urge you to look at some of the more interesting aspects of going forward beyond the traditional itineraries that we have spoken about earlier. So for high net worth individuals, when we're talking about HNI segment of travelers, you may want to upsell certain unique itineraries that go in beyond the East Coast towards the Prairie provinces. Manitoba offers a great amount of options for the high net worth individual and the discerning traveler. So does Saskatchewan. In fact, Saskatchewan gives you the feeling of being in the out west. So most people think that cowboys are really only relegated to the United States of America and to Texas, but rest assured that the province of Saskatchewan as well as Alberta are home to also the outback and then the old west feeling from a heritage and cultural perspective. In fact, in Calgary, every year in the month of July is the Calgary Stampede. And this is a 10-day event that spans everything from culinary to adventure, excitement, because they have rodeos, they have caravan races, and of course, you have an opportunity to interact and see how the First Nation people also have their performances, and their heritage and culture is also on display. So these are some of the interesting facts, and I know we're running short of time, so I won't take much time, but to bring Carol back on to take you through the next segment.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vaz. And let us begin with the first province, which is Manitoba. Now, Manitoba is the heart of Canada, is known as the heart of Canada. That's because it's a province with historic transportation hub and is easily accessible from all parts of Canada. One of the cities that we would be covering is Winnipeg. Now, when you explore Manitoba, you usually combine it with Churchill, but since Winnipeg has more of his heritage and culture, we would be focusing more on Winnipeg today. So while you visit to Winnipeg, the Canadian Museum for Human Rights is the highlight, as well as the Assiniboine Park Zoo. Now, if you do not visit the Churchill, if you do not plan to visit Churchill, you can get a feel of the Churchill experience at the Assiniboine Park Zoo. Canadian Museum for Human Rights is mandatory or must be included in your itinerary. That's because it takes the visitors to a journey of evolution, and it celebrates the future of human rights of Canada from all around the world. Now, just to understand the distance from Winnipeg to Regina. Now, Regina is the capital of Saskatchewan. It's a 6.5 hours drive. And from Winnipeg James Armstrong International Airport, it's a 30 minutes drive to the downtown of Winnipeg. Again, you can see on the right-hand side of the image, the Forks National Historic Site is something that you must include in your itinerary. Folklorama, which is the largest and the longest running multicultural festival in the world, is one of the things that you must experience when you visit Winnipeg, and the Historic Exchange District, a guided tour of the district that highlights the architectural achievements of the city. As we move ahead to Saskatchewan, like I said, we would be covering 2 cities, Regina and Saskatoon, Regina being the capital city of Saskatchewan. The must-do to experience the culture and heritage in Saskatoon is the Batoche National Historic Site and the Venisqueen Heritage Park, wherein you can see that on the right-hand side. And to top it off, you can experience a unique cuisine, a unique local cuisine at the Cave Restaurant. Now, when you drive from Saskatoon to Regina, it's an approximate of 3 hours drive. Further, when you move ahead to Regina, two of the sightseeings that I would like to highlight is the RCMP Heritage Center and the Royal Saskatchewan Museum, which gives you the First Nations Gallery information, and the RCMP Heritage highlights the lawless days of the Old West and the policing in the North. Addition to that, you must visit the Legislative Building, the Wascana Park, and the Government House. Let us see a short video on the community of Saskatchewan.
This is the land of we and us, of shared experiences. The breezes feel friendlier. The sky feels a little bit bigger. Somehow, these vast, wide-open spaces have a way of bringing people together. And we never tire of hearing people say, "You can see forever here." Saskatchewan.
So that was a short video on the community of Saskatchewan. Further, we move ahead to Alberta province. Now, Alberta is well known for Canadian Rockies, and hence we have highlighted 5 places, which is Calgary, Edmonton, Banff National Park, Lake Louise, and Jasper National Park in Alberta. Now, the capital of Alberta is Edmonton. As we arrive in Calgary, Heritage Park is one of the Canada's largest living history museum, where you must visit to experience the history of Calgary. Glenbow Museum gives you an amazing experience of Indigenous arts, and the distance while you travel from Calgary to Banff National Park, it's a 1.5 hours drive. As mentioned by Mr. Vaz, Stampede Park is a must-do during the month of July if you're visiting Calgary in the month of July, as it's a 10-day festival and a great experience one can have. Addition to the Calgary Tower, you can also visit the Calgary Tower, which gives you the amazing view of the entire city as well as the Rockies. Fort Calgary is again the National Historic Site and the birthplace of the city of Calgary. As we move ahead to Banff, you must visit the Fairmont Banff Springs, which is known as the Castle of Rockies. So if you do not opt to stay in this particular property, you must visit this property to experience the beautiful view it has and the beautiful historic touch it has to offer. Addition to that, Banff Gondola is a must-do when you visit the Banff National Park. Now, to experience the historic and the heritage and the cultural side of Banff, you must visit Cave and Basin National Historic Site. So you can combine it with the peak-to-peak gondola ride. Banff Park Museum, that gives you the natural history from bees to bears. So it's a beautiful experience where one can have. And you have option of city tour of 3 hours and 5 hours that covers your Bow Falls, a scenic view, the Surprise Corner, which is the higher view of Bow Falls, an amazing historic experience of the abandoned mining town, the Bankhead, and the Hoodoo's Lookout, which is a spire of rock. Again, it also includes the Lake Minnewanka, a scenic view of the Banff National Park. Further, as we move ahead, Fairmont Chateau Lake Louise is something that you must see when you visit Lake Louise, as it is the UNESCO World Heritage Site, as well as you can canoe at Fairmont Chateau Lake Louise, near Fairmont Chateau Lake Louise, and experience the Lake Agnes Tea House and the Lake Agnes, as it has beautiful view to see. Jasper National Park is very famous for the Columbia Field Ice Tours. So you visit you opt for the glacier adventure, wherein you spend your time at the Athabasca Glacier and later to the Glacier Skywalk. But again, one of the most visited places is the Jasper Planetarium that gives you an opportunity to explore the Canadian constellation of Northern Lights as well as the Milky Way, and the historical gallery, which highlights the railway and the early exploration of tourism in Jasper National Park. Edmonton is again very important to explore the history, the culture of Alberta. The Royal Alberta Museum is a must-do when you visit Edmonton. That's because it enhances and it shows how the ancient lifestyle has still been in strong connections with significant places and the stories of their past. And the Fort Edmonton Park, which you can see on the right-hand side, that focuses more on the First Nations and the Métis culture, Métis people that Edmonton has to offer. Now, when you drive from Edmonton to Jasper National Park, it's an approximate of 4.5 hours drive. And some of the highlights to experience the Indigenous culture is the Métis Crossing, the Broadway Gallery, and the Indigenous Art Park in Edmonton. This is one of the itinerary that covers your entire Prairie province. Once you arrive in Calgary, you stop by at Drumheller. Now, the Royal Tyrrell Museum is again a highlight and gives you an historic view. It gives you basically an information of the dinosaur fossils. So it is again an historic part wherein you visit when you are in Calgary, and you can visit and while you're visiting Saskatoon. Likewise, you can also travel from Calgary to Edmonton and stop by at Drumheller. Further, you proceed for a 2-night stay to Saskatoon, proceed ahead to Regina, and then for a 2-night stay to Winnipeg. So these are the itineraries of 6 nights, 7 days, which includes all of the sightseeings and activities that we just spoke about. And now further, when we move ahead to British Columbia, I would like Mr. Kalwas to come in again and give us an overview of the province.
Thank you, Carol. As we go forward, friends, some of the things that I'd like you to keep in mind when you're talking about the province of British Columbia is that we are all very familiar with the city of Vancouver, not only from a leisure perspective, but also from a cruise perspective. What I would like you to do is to think about some of the things that we spoke about at our previous webinar. We spoke about Kamloops, we spoke about Kelowna, we spoke about Whistler and Victoria. Now, when we do a little bit of a deeper dive, I think what's important to understand is that the flavor of British Columbia can be brought out in many ways. It's also a gateway towards going to the Yukon, which again brings out the old Wild West, brings out the frontier feeling. Beyond that, British Columbia is also populated by many nature parks. And of course, there are a lot more things that you can do to interact with the local indigenous population, especially in the city of Kamloops, where you can actually take boat rides with the First Nation people who will talk to you about their life, their origins, and beliefs. One can also go upwards towards the north on your way to the Yukon to experience some of the traditional heritage that Canada had when the first settlers first came in. So there's a lot more to do beyond the traditional attractions that we look at in the city of Vancouver. So the objective of this last this upcoming segment is to really do a little bit of a deeper dive into the heritage and culture. So Carol, I'd like you to take this forward, please.
Thank you so much, sir. And while we proceed ahead to our next province, which is the west coast of Canada, British Columbia, Vancouver is basically the gateway, and Vancouver International Airport is the main gateway to British Columbia, and Victoria is the capital of British Columbia. 4 cities, like we would highlight, is Vancouver, Whistler, Kamloops, and Golden. Now, while you visit Vancouver, you must visit Stanley Park and experience the Stanley Park via the seawall. And to experience the heritage and culture, you must visit the Brockton Point in Stanley Park, along with the Capilano Suspension Bridge that is very famous in Vancouver. As we move further ahead, you can also experience the indigenous culture at the Museum of Anthropology at the University of British Columbia. You can experience the Takaya tours, which gives you the storytelling opportunity at the West Coast, which is basically a canoe tour. One of the most famous festivals that you can experience in Vancouver is the International Jazz Festival, and is one of the biggest summer celebrations that happens in Vancouver. As we move ahead to Whistler, in addition to peak-to-peak gondola ride, you must explore the Squamish Lil'wat Cultural Center and the Cultural Center's Cafe, which gives you an opportunity to experience the Indigenous-inspired menu in Whistler. Now, Whistler is very famous for winter activities. Hence, when you plan to visit Whistler during the winters, you must experience the Whistler World Ski and Snowboard Festival, along with the Whistler's Children Festival. And in addition to that, you must experience the Velia Lumnia, which is the light show during the evenings in Whistler. As we move further ahead to Kamloops, now Kamloops is well known for its art murals, and hence you can opt for a 1.5-hour guided tour that highlights the history of Kamloops, about the fur traders, the train robbers, the pioneers, as well as highlights the various art murals that Kamloops has to offer. Now, when you travel from Kamloops to Banff, it is basically a 5.5 hours drive, and to Jasper National Park, it's again a 5 hours drive. You can also visit Kamloops Museum and Archives, which is on the right-hand side of the image. And to experience the indigenous culture, you can opt for a guided canoe journey. And I would be playing a short video on the indigenous culture with a canoe ride.
There are no instructions, no guidance, no culture for dummies book. If you want to experience culture, we want you to feel it. We want you to taste it. We want you to smell it. We want you to touch it. We truly believe that some of the most important lessons are taught through raw, real-life experiences and emotion. And we teach these lessons through the ancestral paths of our Indigenous people. These tours are so much more than just a boat ride down the Thompson River. Knowing that our ancestors traveled these exact same paths for thousands of years, just as we are today, there's something special, there's something spiritual about that. It's like we take them back in time to feel far more connected than they ever have been to these paths, so that our visitors will remember places like Kamloops, not just as Kamloops, but as the place where the rivers meet, a place that is so rich in culture, our people, our traditions. Through these real-life experiences, that's when they will get a deep appreciation of not only the Kamloops area and the people, but our history as well. Our ultimate goal is to open people's eyes into a way of life you would have never previously known. And that's why we do what we do. We want to bring you into our culture. We want to bring you into our world so that you'll come as a guest, but you'll leave as a family member and a little more transformed than when you came. We are Moccasin Trails.
So that was a beautiful experience from the cultural point in Kamloops. Further, when we move ahead to Golden, now Golden is a part of British Columbia, but it's very close to Alberta and the Rockies. And the image which you can see on the right-hand side is the Kicking Horse River Pedestrian Bridge, a beautiful bridge to explore and experience when you visit Golden. And another option is to explore the Golden's residential past is by visiting the Golden Museum. Now, one of the amazing experiences you can have at Golden is by visiting the Eagle's Eye restaurant, which is one of the highest restaurants in Canada. And you can go to it by to this particular place by opting a gondola ride. Again, the most visited places. So if Golden is right at the center of Rockies and British Columbia province, hence you have an opportunity to explore the Glacier National Park, Yoho National Park, as well as the Jasper National Park and the Banff National Park. This is one of the itinerary that includes your 2-night stay in Vancouver. So as soon as you arrive, you proceed for 1-night stay in Whistler. You proceed for Kamloops for a 1-night stay. Proceed onwards to Golden, and then probably you can build in your itinerary to the Rockies. But here we have brought you back to Vancouver for a 2-night stay again. So again, the itineraries consist all the content that we've just gone through in the slides. It's a 5-night, 6 days itinerary. And we have the Canadian Rockies itinerary, wherein this is the map which covers your Rockies as well as the West Coast, wherein you arrive in Calgary, stop by at Drumheller, proceed to Edmonton, 2-night stay in Jasper, 2-night stay in Banff, with a day visit to Lake Louise, come to Kamloops, which is a part of the West Coast, then proceed onwards to Whistler and end your journey in Vancouver. And while you proceed from Jasper to Banff, you can stop by at Columbia Icefield to experience the Columbia Icefield tour. So this is your 9-night, 10 days itinerary. And further, before proceeding to the Northwest Territories and the northern part of Canada, I would like to invite Mr. Kalwas once again to give us an overview of the northern part of Canada.
Okay. So thank you, Carol. As we come to the last segment, which is really the Northern Territories, which include the Yukon, Northwest Territories, and Nunavut, I think what's important to note is that currently these parts of Canada are really not explored all that much by Indian travelers. And here is an important aspect for those of you who are tapping the high net worth individual traveler, because to these typical classic summer itineraries, and also now with the additional aspects of heritage and culture, you can also look at upselling the Northwest Territories to high net worth individuals. If you go during the summer season, there's a lot of things that you can do in terms of building, going ice fishing. You can even look at if the weather permits, because if you go towards the earlier part of the summer, which is in the months of April and May, you'll still have some places that are quite cold. So you'll still be able to get in some of those visuals of the Northern Lights, weather permitting. And of course, take in a little bit of the culture of the indigenous population. I would like Carol to take forward quickly, as we're running out of time, some of the itineraries that we've planned for you, please.
Sure. And now we would explore the northern part of Canada. We would begin with Northwest Territories, and here we would explore the Yellowknife. Yellowknife is basically the capital of Northwest Territories, and you have various options to reach to Yellowknife. You can travel by air from Calgary, from Edmonton, but itinerary that we have created for you is from Vancouver and back to Vancouver, and then you can proceed ahead to plan your itinerary towards your further journey. Now, the image that you can see is a frozen cuisine that you can experience in Yellowknife, a Dean culture experience to give you an amazing experience of history, language, and unique connection to the land. And one of the highlights is the Prince of Wales Northern Heritage Centre that you can experience at Yellowknife, apart from the Aurora Boreals. So Aurora Boreals is one of the famous activities, and the Northern Lights is really beautiful in Yellowknife during a particular season. And with Aurora Boreals, you can also experience the Aboriginal culture at a particular camp. So hence, you may include all of these itineraries, these activities of Yellowknife, of Northern culture and Aboriginal experience while you explore Yellowknife in Northwest Territories. Further, we move ahead to the itinerary, wherein, like I said, you arrive in Vancouver and proceed directly for an arrival to Yellowknife, and then come back for a stay at Vancouver and explore the various activities in Vancouver. Further, when we proceed ahead to the next territory, which is the Yukon Territory, now again you have option to fly from Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, Ottawa, and various other places. But you also have the driving options as well, and that we would take you through to our next upcoming webinar that we would be going through, maybe in our self-drive webinars. The capital of Yukon is Whitehorse, and hence we've covered the activities and the attractions in Whitehorse. The historic SS Klondike is the most famous place in Whitehorse, which gives you the history of the era of riverboat transportation, where there was no land transportation available. And the Yukon Beringia Interpretive Center that takes you to the lost subcontinent of Beringia. So these are the two highlights in Whitehorse. And in addition to that, one more thing I would like to highlight is that from the Whitehorse International Airport to the downtown of Whitehorse, the drive is an approximate of 7 to 10 minutes drive. So with this, we would come to the itinerary, wherein you arrive in Vancouver, proceed for a 2-night stay to Whitehorse, you fly to Whitehorse, come back to Vancouver for a 2-night stay, and do a day visit to Whistler. This is your 5-night, 6-day itinerary that includes Whitehorse, Vancouver, and the various other activities. With this, I would like to conclude my side of the presentation, and thank you everyone once again for being a part of this webinar. Over to you, Akshay.
Thank you so much, Carol. And as usual, excellent insights from Mr. Vaz. Thank you so much, sir. Up next, we have a very special speaker amongst us, all the way from Canada, Mr. Prasad Gopinath, President, DMCI. DMCI is one of Canada's leading destination management companies, offering curated travel experiences across Canada. Mr. Prasad brings over 38 years of experience to the business as a founder and president. He is responsible for setting the overall direction and product strategy to maintain DMCI's position as Canada's leading destination management company and curator of tour packages. May I please welcome Mr. Prasad.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Prasad Gopinath from DMCI. I would like to thank you all for taking time to attend this webinar. I would also like to thank Carl Voss and Destination Canada, Arun Pandya and Air Canada, and Akshay Kumar and his team for helping us to host all this event. Can I have the slideshow on, please? Okay, so about us, we opened doors in 2002, exactly October 2002. We are a receptive tour operator DMCI offers products and services across Canada, coast to coast. And we have two offices, one based in Toronto, and we have also an office in Mumbai specifically to serve the Indian clientele. So that's a little about our office and our locations. We work very closely with Carlwas, Destination Canada, and Air Canada. We participate in all the various trade shows, webinars, and so on, as well as I take a lot of cues from Carlwas and Destination Canada on what kind of products and services we should be bringing to Canada, to India. So let me move on to the next slide. Okay. So as far as our products and services are concerned, before we go into the products and services, I would like to just give you all an overview of what we feel is going to happen in 2021. At this moment, most of the inquiries we are getting are related to van tours, which is basically, 7-seater vans to a 15-seater Sprinter. Those vehicles will allow some amount of social distancing, and most of the inquiries are related to single families or two families traveling together kind of thing. We are getting quite a few inquiries for self-drive packages, and we already have these packages at our website. The other inquiries are largely FIT. We have some requests for escorted tours, but what's going to happen with social distancing on the tour coaches is yet to be known. At this moment, what the tour coach companies are telling us is on a 56-seater, they will allow 26 to max 28 people. Now, that should not be a problem as far as India is concerned, because most of the time you need a 56-seater for an escorted tour, considering how much luggage is brought by the clients. And usually most of the tours, they never exceed 30 people on a coach. So that should not be an issue as far as escorted tours are concerned. SIC tours, we are still waiting for tariffs. Everybody is waiting to see what's going to happen next before they decide on the SIC. Our understanding is by October, we will have firm indication on what kind of seat and coach tours will be operating. All the 99% of the, or almost every one of the attractions will be open anyways. To give you an update on what's happening as far as health and safety is concerned, everybody has to wear a mask. Now, I don't know what's going to happen in 2021. At this moment, everybody has to wear a mask. Social distancing is a must. These are the only two things that you have to bear in mind. And a number of the attractions, they are insisting on contact tracing. So the client may have to leave their phone number or email just in case they need to be contacted by the authorities. Now, going into the products and services we are offering for 2021, we'll have all our products, which are our ready-made products, at our website. And of course, we will do a lot of the customized packages as required by the clientele. Every one of the products at our website is commissionable at 10% to the agent. There's no mention of commissions at the website per se, but anything that is published at our website will be commissionable at 10%. That's one thing I wanted all of you to note. Customized packages, they are all net to the agent. Now, product lines, we will have FIT packages, we'll have private van tours, we'll have self-drive packages. We are also coming out with a luxury product based on Fairmont hotels coast to coast. So we'll have all these products ready. Some of them are already ready and posted at our website. The others will be posted by the end of August. Destinations, Rockies. We have itineraries specific to the Rockies that is starting in Calgary and ending in Edmonton, with Banff, the Yoho National Park, Banff National Park, Jasper National Park, and so on. We'll have itineraries which are Rockies to the ocean, which is starting in Calgary and ending in Vancouver. We'll have West Coast Delights, basically Vancouver, Whistler, Victoria, and we'll have a hybrid of that, which will be a complete self-drive package for Vancouver Island. This is a new product we are coming out with. There's very few people who have done this. Vancouver Island is an extremely beautiful place to drive around. Lots to see there. So we are going to come out with this West Coast Delight itinerary. We'll have the best of the East, which is Toronto, Niagara Falls, all the way to Quebec City. We are coming out with a new product, which Carol had just now presented a few minutes ago. This is relating to the Maritimes. It's an itinerary which will start in Halifax, Lunenburg, Digby, St. John's, Prince Edward Island, and back to Halifax. We'll provide two iterations. One is a van tour. The other would be a self-drive package. Now, one of the things I would recommend for the Maritimes is always do a self-drive package. There's a lot more to see, and just rushing around is not going to help you. We already have Northern Lights for 2020. The best time to see Northern Lights, just for your information, February and August. These are the best months of the year to see Northern Lights. General package inclusions, most of the packages will be 6 to 14 nights. I guess that will work very well with the clientele from India. They will include sightseeing tours. The sightseeing tours could be private. At this moment, all the sightseeing tours we are offering are all private tours. We already have itineraries online which offer these. Admissions, ground transportation based on how many people, and of course taxes and GST. So these are the basic FIT packages. Now, as far as breakfast and other meals are concerned, we are waiting for what's going to happen in 2021. At this moment, most of the hotels are offering breakfast, which will be a plated breakfast. And some of the hotels, some of the destinations, we are not including the breakfast because there's no clarity on what's going to happen at this as of now. But by October, end of October, we will know exactly what can be included in terms of meals. We are offering activity packages. We are seeing an uptake in this product from India. Canoeing, whitewater rafting, ziplining, razor and ATV tours in places like Whistler, snowmobiling, dog sledding, snowshoeing, and so on. One of the things I wanted to stress is Indians, the clientele from India is no longer a summer clientele. I believe they are an all-season clientele. I see them here all year round. We see Indians coming in for winter activities these days. I'm talking about 2019, 2020, of course, is a different story. But we should not just conclude not many people will travel. There is a traffic coming in right now. Rail tours, Rocky Mountaineer and Via Rail tours. As of now, both are not operating, but I mean, like they are expected to go back into operations next year in 2021. We are offering tours and admissions across Canada, all kinds of tours. They are being listed one by one at our website. As soon as the tariffs for 2021 are ready, we put them up. So these are again commissionable at 10%. Now, how do you pay for this? We have a payment gateway, so we can take credit cards. As long as we can only take agency credit cards, we cannot take client credit cards. As long as you are providing us an agency credit card, we have a payment gateway and we can take your cards. Now, this is a new product we have come out with. We have already launched it in Canada, and we have people asking for this: rustic stays. We have camps in the middle of the forest, log cabins, away from civilization, honestly. Typically, you have to walk from the parking lot. You have to walk 2.5 miles through a forest to get to the log cabin. Full board, Canadian meals, activity loaded, canoeing, hiking, wildlife viewing, so on. Digital detox, no Wi-Fi, no phone connection, no TV. And some of the log cabins we have no hydro. It's an exotic experience. It's in high demand in Canada. I'm introducing this in your market. This is meant for the more discerning customers. But this is we are starting to get inquiries for these. So this is a new product we are coming out with. We'll have something similar for winter, which will be instead of the canoeing and hiking and so on, it will be more in line with snowmobiling. As far as reservations and contact information is concerned, all the requests will come to reservations@dmci.ca. And of course, Don Thomas, as some of you may know him, he is our VP of operations. All operations are controlled out of Toronto. Our Bombay office helps us with working with working in India on Indian time, of course, and they are contactable. We'll provide the information as required. So that's a little about DMCI and the services we offer. As far as itineraries are concerned, I'm not going to go into the detail of that because Paula has already done a good, Carol has already done a good job on it. Any of those itineraries that Carol presented, we can price them for you. So I would like to thank you all for attending the webinar, and I'm open to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Prasad, for that informative presentation and also really some innovative products. I'm quite sure our audience must be confident enough in knowing much more about Canada as a tourist destination today. I would first like to thank the audience for their overwhelming response on posting questions throughout the course of this webinar. Audience can still keep posting their questions, and we shall now take it up in the Q&A session. Can we have all the speakers, please?
Put in one more word on this subject of traveling to Canada. I would suggest is everybody should encourage, every agent should encourage their customers to buy full travel insurance. It's extremely important.
Yes, the very valid point, Mr. Prasad. Thank you so much. So the first question which we have is for Mr. Prasad. You mentioned about the self-drive segment. So is the Indian license valid? And also, ideally, how many itineraries should be packaged for a self-drive?
See, we already have 4 itineraries online. Those are the most saleable itineraries as far as Canada, as far as the clientele from India is concerned. There's one for Eastern Canada, which is starting in Toronto, ending in Quebec. Basically, you drive from here to Quebec and come back and drop your car off in Toronto again. There's a second one, which is only the Rockies, starting in Calgary, ending in Edmonton. There's a third one, which is starting in Calgary, ending in Vancouver. And there is one which is a West Coast delight: Calgary, Vancouver, Whistler, Nanaimo, Tofino, Victoria, and back to Vancouver. So that those itineraries are already ready. And if there's anything else clients would require, we'll provide them those. There is one other itinerary we will be adding, which is the Maritimes itinerary. The rates are not ready, so that's why it's not there. But the other itineraries are all ready for the self-drive. Now, self-drive, you typically need minimum 6 days. If you are trying to drive less than 6 days, you're not going to cover it. Canada is a big country, lots of distances. So minimum, I would say, 6 days, ideally 8 days to 10 days.
Thank you so much, Mr. Prasad. We have one question for Mr. Vaz. As you see these days, the Indian travelers, they are looking more into the experiential tourism segment. And you speaking about heritage and culture, how much demand do you see from the India market for these segments?
So, Akshay, thank you for that question. I would like our travel agent friends to understand firstly how is Canada positioned, right? When people travel 15 hours and they're looking for a certain, should I say, experience, the self-drive that Prasad touched upon, the self-drive that we also touched upon in our earlier webinar, is a key component. Now, when you're taking a self-drive option, besides the traditional experiences, what's important is that the heritage and cultural aspects of Canada can be experienced during that self-drive. So that's the reason for marrying the heritage and cultural aspect into these itineraries, because you would be able to visit basilicas, forts, you would be able to look at old towns, districts where the first settlers came in, and more importantly, especially if you're driving in some parts of British Columbia, you can actually interact with the indigenous population. So you would drive, let's say, from Vancouver to Whistler and some of the itineraries that Carol presented, and stop at Kamloops. Now, when you're stopping at Kamloops, you could either stay 1 or 2 nights as the itinerary suggested, or if you're even passing through, which is what I did when I did a self-drive, I made sure that I took a break to experience the canoeing with the First Nation people, right? So that's how the heritage and cultural aspects are brought into or married into the experiential form of itineraries. So when we talk about experiential travel, most people attribute that to an adventure, jet skiing or snowmobiling, all of which are possible in Canada. But experiential travel at a next level, right, is also immersive travel, where you bond with the local population, you bond with the local heritage and cultural aspect. That takes you to what is known as transformational travel. And so what we're trying to do through the series of webinars is encourage our travel agent friends to start building packages of transformational travel. And we have started that first process with the Summer Classics that was done a few weeks ago. We've now brought heritage and culture. We will bring adventure coming forward. So there are various webinars, which is in the list that Travel Trends Today, T3, puts out regularly. We will be talking, in fact, about self-drives on the East Coast, self-drive on the West Coast. So these are all part of a 7-series webinar, which will go on from now, which started in July and will continue till December.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vas. We have one question for Mr. Prasad. It's a very specific one. Is it possible or advised to suggest a combination of self-drive and private van tour itinerary for a client to experience both the flavors?
Yes, in fact, I would suggest that, for example, if you are driving from, say, Calgary to Vancouver, I would say Vancouver City Tour should be a private tour for the simple reason that there is no parking in Vancouver. It's extremely difficult to find parking. So if you go into the Gastown, there's no parking, and you want to get off to see the steam clock. No way. The little clock, there's no parking anywhere near that. You will be driving around crazy. So the Vancouver City Tour, I would do a private, but the rest of it, I will do a self-drive tour. Victoria Tour, I'll do self-drive. But when it comes to these cities where you don't have parking or there are challenges with parking, you do a private tour. So a combination of this works very well. So the answer is yes.
And a very interesting aspect of Canada, which was discussed previously, both by Mr. Karl and Mr. Prasad, the cruise tourism segment. So what kind of cruising would you suggest for a first-time traveler to Canada? A short cruise, or how is it? What kind of itinerary should he travel on?
Is the question addressed to me?
Yes, sir. You can take.
Okay. There is most of the cruise. Largely the cruising industry is centered in Vancouver. Those are the Alaska cruises. Now there is also a cruising industry centered in Quebec City. Those are the Atlantic cruises. NCL sails out of Quebec. Other than that, there are no, there may be off and on we hear this small cruise companies, like they have a 70 people boat or 100 people boat kind of thing. Those are possible. There are some very good cruises in British Columbia. I can send the information out to the agents who are asking for this. These are very high-end 7-night cruises. Now, these are not an ocean cruise. There are some local cruises on the rivers and so on. So that I can offer that information. So I'm not aware of any other cruises other than this. So Alaska cruise, the NCL cruise is out of Quebec City, and then there are some river cruises in British Columbia.
Thank you so much, Mr. Prasad. May I welcome Mr. Vaz for the final words?
Well, I just want to thank, I know we have run a little over schedule, so I just want to thank all the participants. I want to thank IRCC, Jackie McLean, Mr. Arun Pandya, General Manager India for Air Canada, Mr. Prasad Gopinathan, President of DMCI, and of course, everyone for taking time to be with us. And look forward to seeing you at the next webinar shortly. Thank you so much.